The acrid stench of burning circuitry and ozone filled the command bridge of the Invisible Hand. Emergency klaxons wailed their death songs as the massive separatist flagship listed dangerously, caught in Coruscant's gravitational pull. Through the panoramic viewports, the battle for the Republic's heart raged, starfighters weaving between turbo-laser fire, capital ships exchanging broadsides that lit the void like artificial suns. But here, in the ship's nerve center, another battle had reached its climax. Count Dooku, once the epitome of aristocratic grace and deadly precision, knelt in defeat. His severed hands lay meters away, still clutching the curved hilt of his lightsaber. Blood seeped through his elegant cape, staining the deck plates. Above him stood Anakin Skywalker, the prophesied Chosen One, wielding two lightsabers in an X formation at the fallen Sith Lord's throat, his own cerulean blades singing in harmony with Dooku's captured crimson weapon. Chancellor Palpatine leaned forward in his throne-like chair, his grandfatherly facade cracking to reveal something far more sinister beneath. The shadows seemed to dance around him, drawn in by invisible magnetism. "Good, Anakin. Good. Now kill him." The words slithered through the smoke-filled air like serpents seeking prey. Anakin's mechanical hand tightened on the lightsaber hilts, servos whining under the pressure. His organic hand trembled, not from exertion, but from the weight of the moment. Dooku's eyes, once filled with arrogant certainty, now reflected only desperate understanding. The Count's lips moved soundlessly, perhaps a plea, perhaps a curse. This wasn't the Jedi way. The code demanded justice, not vengeance. Prisoners should face trial, not execution. But hadn't the war already shattered so many principles? Hadn't Dooku himself shown no mercy to the countless Jedi he'd slain? "Do it!" The command carried an almost physical weight, pressing down on Anakin's consciousness. Time seemed to crystallize, each heartbeat stretched into eternity. Then, with a moment as swift as thought, the blades scissored closed. Dooku's head separated cleanly from his shoulders, rolling away into the shadows cast by the failing emergency lights. The body crumpled forward, aristocratic robes pooling around the corpse like spilled wine. Silence descended, broken only by the distant rumble of explosions and the hiss of deactivating lightsabers. "I shouldn't have." The words emerged as barely a whisper, lost in the vastness of his transgression. But Palpatine was already there, a comforting hand on his shoulder, voice dripping with paternal understanding. "It is only natural. He was too dangerous to be left alive." The rationalization should have soothed him. It didn't. As Anakin stared at Dooku's lifeless form, a cold certainty crystallized in his gut. Something fundamental had shifted, not just in him, but in the very fabric of the Force itself. The Jedi Temple had never felt more like a tomb. Its soaring spires, once symbols of hope and wisdom, now seemed to mock Anakin with their unchanging serenity. The war raged on despite Dooku's death. The Separatist Council scattered but not defeated, their droid armies still grinding away at Republic forces across 1,000 worlds. In the depths of the temple, far from the meditation chambers and council rooms, Anakin found solitude in Training Hall 7. The massive space bore the scars of his frustration, scorch marks on the walls, melted chunks of training droids scattered like metallic bones. He'd been there for hours, maybe days. Time had lost meaning in the repetitive cycle of combat. Another wave of remotes activated, their photoreceptors glowing red in the dim light. They came at him from all angles, a coordinated assault designed to overwhelm even a Jedi Master. But Anakin was beyond such simple challenges now. His lightsaber became a blue inferno, weaving patterns of destruction that defied categorization. A remote fired from his left. He deflected with a classic Sorisu parry. Two more attacked from above. An Ataru leap carried him over their firing solution. A cluster tried to pin him down with suppressing fire. Gems So strength blasted through their formation, but it wasn't enough. It was never enough. As the last remote clattered to the floor in sparking pieces, Anakin stood amid the devastation, chest heaving, sweat streaming down his face. His prosthetic hand ached with phantom pain, echoing the moment Dooku had taken his flesh arm years ago. The duel on the invisible hand replayed in his mind with perfect clarity. Every strike, every parry, every adaptation. These forms, they're not enough anymore. The realization struck with the force of revelation. Throughout the fight with Dooku, he'd shifted between forms instinctively, drawing on years of training and battlefield experience. Makashi when he needed precision, Sorisu when pressed defensive, Vapad's philosophy to channel his anger constructively, Ataru's acrobatics to create opportunities. No single form had been sufficient. The victory had come from synthesis, not adaptation. If the old ways couldn't meet the challenges of modern warfare, then perhaps it was time to forge something new. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. We thank you all for your continued support. In the days that followed, Anakin became a ghost in the temple archives. He studied every holocron, every training manual, every scrap of combat philosophy the Jedi had accumulated over millennia. But more importantly, he delved into his own memories, examining each teacher and opponent who had shaped his understanding of lightsaber combat. The memories came in waves, each one a lesson written in light and pain. Dooku had a talent for making me feel clumsy. Who else draws on centuries of aristocratic fencing tradition in the middle of galactic warfare? But he taught me that one precise cut could end a duel. The memory crystallized with painful clarity. Geonosis, that nightmare of dust and death. The Count had moved like liquid mercury, his curved blade finding every gap in Anakin's defense. The searing agony as his arm was severed, the shock of seeing his own limb lying in the sand. Young Skywalker, the Force is strong with you, but you wield it with the grace of a hammer. Even in memory, the condescension stung, but beneath the insult lay truth. Dooku's Makashi had been poetry in motion, each movement calculated for maximum effect with minimum effort. Economy of motion, that was the first lesson. And that was before he disarmed me, literally. Next came memories of Obi-Wan, his master, his brother, his anchor in the storm of war. How many times had they sparred in this very temple? How many times had Obi-Wan's defensive mastery saved them both? Anakin, you must learn patience. The true strength of sorcery lies in enduring, giving no opening to the enemy. The training courtyard materialized in his mind, remotes firing in perfect sequence, Obi-Wan standing at the center like a stone in a river, deflecting every bolt with minimal movement. Anakin had tried to emulate him, but his nature rebelled against such passivity, yet he couldn't deny its effectiveness. Obi-Wan tried so hard to teach me patience, but sometimes my impatience is what saved us both. Then came darker memories. Mace Windu, the master who had never quite trusted him. Their relationship had been complicated, built on mutual respect, overshadowed by deeper suspicions. But Windu's mastery of Vaapad had been undeniable. Vaapad is a path of danger. One misstep, and it will feed on your own darkness. The memory showed Windu in combat, his purple blade creating a cage of light around him. But it was more than physical technique. It was a state of mind, channeling one's inner darkness into a weapon against evil. The danger was obvious, the power undeniable. Mace never fully trusted me. Maybe he saw the potential darkness in me, but his teachings left a mark. You can channel aggression without losing yourself, if you're strong enough. Finally, the ancient wisdom of Master Yoda, 9 centuries of combat experience distilled into a being smaller than most younglings. The memory of Geonosis returned, Yoda arriving like a force of nature, his lightsaber a green blur as he drove Dooku back. Limitless is the Force, but your body, limited it can be. Conserve your energy you must. Master Yoda could fight like a whirlwind, yet it was unsustainable for long engagements. That was my challenge, melding these forms without inheriting all their faults. Late one night, hunched over a private terminal in the archives, Anakin began documenting his synthesis. The cursor blinked on the empty screen before he began typing. Tempest, Form 8. Must transition seamlessly between parries and strikes. Must incorporate varied footwork from all 7 forms. Must incorporate mental discipline from Vaapad to avoid the dark side. His fingers paused, the weight of what he was attempting, creating an entirely new lightsaber form, pressed down on him. The lost form, Vaapad, had been developed by Mace Windu himself, and look how few could master it safely. But the galaxy was changing. The Sith had returned, the war had shown the limitations of classical training, and adaptation was survival. He continued writing late into the night, filling page after page with technical specifications, philosophical foundations, and training regimens. Tempest would be more than a fighting style, it would be a new way of understanding the Force itself. The crisis came without warning, as crises often do. Anakin had been in the Room of 1,000 Fountains, seeking meditation among the artificial streams and imported flora when the Force screamed in warning. A great disturbance, like the death cry of stars, emanated from the Senate district. By the time he reached the Senate building, night had fallen like a shroud over Coruscant. The usual rivers of traffic had diverted, leaving the sky eerily empty. Smoke rose from a dozen fires, painting the clouds in shades of orange and red. The grand steps of the Senate were littered with the bodies of guards, their armor bearing the telltale marks of lightsaber wounds. Anakin led a strike team of those who had responded to his call. A handful of knights, some trusted clones led by Rex and Ahsoka, his former Padawan who had returned when the crisis deepened. They ascended the steps at a run, boots slipping on the marble slicked with blood. Anakin, do you sense that? There's a darkness here, something powerful. His former master had arrived moments before, his face drawn with exhaustion and worry. The feeling Obi-Wan described was undeniable, a presence in the Force so dark it seemed to drain the light from the very air. I feel conflict. Mace, Ahsoka, the Council, some are hurt, some gone. The massive doors to the Grand Convocation Chamber had been blown off their hinges. Inside, devastation greeted them. The vast chamber, once the heart of democracy, had become an arena of destruction. Floating platforms drifted aimlessly, their repulsor lifts damaged. Scorch marks from force lightning created abstract patterns on the walls. The acrid smell of ozone mixed with the copper tang of blood. At the chamber's center, on the raised podium where the Chancellor once presided, stood a figure in dark robes. The hood was thrown back, revealing a face twisted by the dark side, yellow eyes burning with malevolent joy, skin pale as death. At his feet lay the broken form of Mace Windu, the mighty warrior reduced to barely breathing wreckage. "So finally we meet, Chosen One. You're late." The voice that emerged bore only passing resemblance to Palpatine's grandfatherly tones. This was something ancient and evil, a corruption given form. Anakin's mind reeled as pieces clicked into place. The Chancellor's subtle manipulations, his unusual interest in Anakin's career, his convenient kidnapping, all of it had been orchestrated. "You cannot imagine the power I wield. The Jedi Order is finished. The Republic is mine." The Sith Lord ignited his lightsaber, the crimson blade casting hellish shadows across his grotesque features. The darkness radiating from him was almost physical, pressing against Anakin's mental shields. "You've destroyed too many lives already. It ends now." What followed would be remembered as one of the most significant duels in galactic history. Sidious moved with preternatural speed, his blade a crimson whirlwind of death, but Anakin had been preparing for this moment without knowing it. Every lesson, every adaptation, every synthesis, it all came together. Tempest was born in that moment. Sidious's first strike came high and fast. Anakin met it with Makashi's economical parry, redirecting rather than blocking. The Sith Lord's follow-up was a classic Juyo sequence, all rage and power, but Anakin flowed into Sorasu's defensive shell, weathering the storm. When Sidious overextended slightly, drunk on his own power, Anakin channeled Vapod's philosophy, using the Sith's own dark energy to fuel a counterattack. The duel ranged across the chamber. They leaped between floating platforms, the Force itself bending to their wills. Sidious unleashed torrents of Force lightning that turned metal to slag. Anakin responded with telekinetic blasts that shattered entire sections of the chamber. But it was the lightsaber work that truly showed Anakin's evolution. He shifted between forms mid-strike, combinations that shouldn't have worked but did. An Ataru flip became a Genso hammer blow. A Sorasu defense transitioned seamlessly into a Makashi riposte. The boundaries between forms dissolved, leaving only pure combat efficiency. "You can't stop me. I am the dark side made flesh." Lightning erupted from the Sith Lord's fingers, a storm of electric death that lit the chamber like a demented thunderstorm. Anakin's prosthetic arm screamed in protest as he caught the lightning on his blade, the circuits overloading. But pain had become an old friend. He channeled it, transformed it, and sent it roaring back. The blast caught Sidious full in the chest, launching him across the chamber. He hit a wall hard, his lightsaber spinning away into the darkness. Before he could recover, Anakin was there, blade to his throat. "It's over." For a moment, the chamber held its breath. Sidious glared up at him, hatred burning in those sulphurous eyes. The dark side whispered seductively, "Kill him, end the threat, take his power." But Anakin had walked that path before, with Dooku. He knew where it led. Instead, he deactivated his lightsaber and stepped back. Justice, not vengeance. That was the Jedi way, but perhaps refined, adapted for the realities they faced. "Well done, Anakin. The Sith, they're defeated." But even as Republic forces secured Sidious, binding him with force-suppressing restraints and preparing him for trial, Anakin felt no triumph. The Sith Lord's capture sent shockwaves through his network, triggering automated protocols and revealing sleeper agents. The Force itself seemed wounded, and he could sense the repercussions spreading across the galaxy like cracks in glass. Dawn brought no peace to the Jedi Temple. The casualties were devastating. Dozens of Jedi dead, killed either in the Senate battle or in simultaneous attacks across Coruscant. Mace Windu had survived the night but succumbed to his injuries as the sun rose, passing into the Force with a final warning about the shadows yet to come. The Council Chamber, once a place of serene wisdom, had become a monument to loss. Where 12 masters once deliberated, barely half remained. Yoda sat slumped in his chair, the weight of his years finally showing. Ki-Adi Mundi's elongated head was bowed in grief. Shakti maintained her composure, but her Leku betrayed her distress with subtle twitches. "Gone, Mace is. Gone, so many others are. Blind we are. The darkness too near." The ancient master's voice carried a grief deeper than words. 900 years of wisdom, and he had missed the Sith Lord hiding in plain sight. "We have scattered reports from across the galaxy, Jedi being hunted, clones following what appear to be contingency protocols. Some units activated partially before we secured Sidious. It's as if he had orchestrated the entire war with failsafes to wipe us out, even if he fell." The mention of the partial activation sent ice through every survivor's veins. Even with Sidious captured, some clone units had received fragmentary orders before the signal was cut. Across several systems, soldiers who had fought alongside Jedi for years had turned their weapons on former allies before the programming could be overridden. "Skywalker, you fought him. You saw how close we came to losing everything." All eyes turned to Anakin, who stood apart from the council circle, not quite outside, but not fully within either. His expression was carved from stone, but his eyes burned with purpose. The old ways nearly destroyed us. We were so bound by tradition we couldn't see the shift happening right under our noses. Sidious exploited that. Now we have to rebuild, or watch everything collapse. There's truth in Anakin's words. We have to adapt. But how? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Voices rose, some defending the traditional code, others calling for reform. The debate grew heated, millennia of tradition clashing with the brutal realities of their near extinction. We can't keep walking the same path and expect different results. The Force is bigger than our rules. If we cling to an order that no longer serves the galaxy, we do the Emperor's work for him. Yoda's gaze lifted, meeting Anakin's with an intensity that transcended the physical. Fear you, the Council once did. Fear the power you hold. But saved us, you have, at great cost. It wasn't just me. It was Ahsoka, Rex, Obi-Wan, everyone who refused to back down, and a new kind of thinking. And what do you propose, Anakin? A new code? A separate faction? The chamber fell silent. What Anakin said next could either unite them or divide them forever. If the Council wants to remain as it is, I won't stop you, but I'm leaving. Anyone who believes we need a new approach, rooted in adaptation rather than dogma, can join me. I won't betray the light, but I refuse to ignore the knowledge the dark side offers. We can't be naive anymore. The words were heresy to some, revelation to others. Yoda closed his eyes, perhaps seeing possible futures spreading like branches from this moment. A step into the unknown, this is. Careful you must be. The gathering in the temple courtyard felt like a funeral and a birth combined. Dawn painted the sky in shades of hope and uncertainty as beings from across the galaxy made their choice. Some wore the traditional robes of Jedi Knights, others bore the army of clone troopers who had broken their conditioning. A few senators, disillusioned with the corrupted Republic, stood among them. Anakin addressed them from the ancient speaking stone, his voice carrying across the silent assembly. We stand at a crossroads. The galaxy is leaderless. The people are afraid. The Jedi Council wants to rebuild the old ways, but we can't ignore what's happened. If any of you feel drawn to help form something new, something that learns from our mistakes, follow me. We won't be Sith, and we won't be Jedi of old. We'll be protectors, balancing light and dark. Ahsoka was the first to step forward, her head tail swaying with determination. I left the Order once because I saw flaws I couldn't live with. If you're giving me a chance to build an order that addresses those flaws, I'm in. Captain Rex removed his helmet, revealing a face marked by countless battles, but still holding hope. General Skywalker, I followed you into countless battles. If there's a fight to protect the innocent, count me in, no matter what uniform I wear. Master Fena, a skilled knight who had seen too many systems abandoned to their fate, added her voice. We saw entire systems abandoned because the Council refused to adapt to changing war tactics. No more. I'm done watching from the sidelines. One by one, they declared themselves. Some came seeking redemption, others revolution, but all shared a belief that the old binary of light and dark had failed to address the galaxy's true nature. As the sun climbed higher, two paths diverged from the Jedi Temple. One group remained with Masters Yoda and Obi-Wan, determined to preserve and purify the traditional ways. The other followed Anakin Skywalker into the unknown. The Storm Order was born not in grand ceremony, but in quiet determination to forge a better path. Their ships touched down on a world whose name history would later record as Haven, though at the time it was simply Coordinate 7734 in the mid-rim. Rolling hills of lavender grass stretched to horizons unmarred by cities or industry. Rivers ran clear and cold from snow-capped mountains. The air tasted of freedom and possibility. This place feels untouched by the war. Nice change from blaster fire and urban chaos, huh? The work began immediately. No grand temples or imposing structures. The Storm Order built for function, not glory. Prefabricated shelters formed a loose circle around a central training ground. A medical facility staffed by clone medics who had chosen healing over hunting. A simple meeting hall where decisions would be made collectively, not handed down from an elevated council. But it was in the training ground where the real revelation took shape. Anakin demonstrated Tempest to eager students. The philosophy made physical. Start with Makashi's footwork. Economize your movement. If faced with multiple opponents, shift to Sorasu's defensive shell. If you see an opening, channel Vapad's aggression. Turn your enemy's power back on them. Move with Ataru's agility when you need to break a stalemate. And above all, remain centered in the Force. Day after day, they trained. Not in rigid forms, but in fluid adaptation. Students learned to read combat like a living language, shifting styles mid-sentence. The Force flowed differently here, not constrained by dogma, but guided by understanding. Word spread through the galaxy's wounds like Bacta on burned flesh. Two Jedi factions now existed, the Orthodox Order maintaining ancient traditions on Coruscant, and the Storm Order offering a new path from their hidden world. Some systems called them saviors, others whispered of dangerous radicals dancing too close to darkness, but results spoke louder than rumors. When pirates enslaved a mining colony, the Storm Order struck like their namesake, Swift, powerful, then gone. When a former Separatist general tried to establish a warlord's kingdom, Storm Order negotiators appeared, offering peace but prepared for war. Their combat style, this mysterious Tempest, left witnesses struggling to describe what they'd seen. The galaxy began calling Anakin by a new name, the Stormwalker, the one who had walked through the tempest of war and emerged transformed. On a night when 3 moons aligned above Haven, Anakin stood on a ridge overlooking their growing settlement. The Japor snippet Padme had given him so long ago rested warm against his chest. He thought of the boy he'd been, dreaming of freeing slaves and seeing the stars. He'd done both, but at costs that boy could never have imagined. Planning our next crusade already, or just enjoying the view? She appeared with the quiet confidence of someone who had found her path. The Storm Order had given her what the Jedi couldn't, a way to serve without sacrificing her integrity. Bit of both. The galaxy's a big place, Ahsoka, and it needs protectors. Ones who learn from the past and aren't afraid to face the future. You ever wonder if any of this was meant to be? The question touched the heart of everything. Prophecy, destiny, choice. Anakin had been proclaimed the Chosen One before he could understand what it meant. He'd been shaped by that expectation, nearly broken by it. All I know is that we have this moment, and we have the Force. The rest we build for ourselves. As another dawn broke over Haven, painting the sky in shades of transformation, the Storm Order prepared for whatever the galaxy would bring. They would face new threats and old prejudices. They would be tested by those who saw any deviation from tradition as heresy. They would struggle with the balance they sought to maintain. But they would endure. With Tempest as their foundation and adaptation as their creed, they would weather any storm. History would remember many things about these times: the fall of the Republic, the unmasking of the Sith, the schism of the Jedi. But perhaps most significant was this: the day Anakin Skywalker chose not to fall to darkness, but to rise beyond the limitations of light. He had broken the chains of prophecy and forged something new. The Stormwalker's journey had only begun, but already the galaxy felt the winds of change. In council chambers and cantinas, in temple halls and battlefield trenches, beings whispered of the Storm Order and wondered if perhaps, just perhaps, a new hope had been born. As the twin sons of Haven rose higher, Anakin turned from his vigil and walked back toward his people. There was work to be done, a future to build, and storms to weather. But for the first time in longer than he could remember, he faced it all without fear. The Force sang with possibility. If you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of what might have been, remember to hit that subscribe button and join us for more explorations of the infinite possibilities within that galaxy far, far away. May the Force be with you, always.